It's Saturday morning, I'm Steve, and this is the return of Saturday morning TV for everybody who still loves their games, comics, and all the fun stuff in between. We'll be kicking things off with Hobby Hangout because nothing says weekend like painting tiny little warriors and pretending it is serious business. Then we're heading into a deep dive on Dungeons and Dragons, a crash course so you can actually start playing instead of just talking about it. After that, it's time for Hit and Miss, where we run through the week's comic highlights and lowlights. And then we have Book Club, where we're cracking open One Piece Volume 4 to see what Luffy's up to this time. And we'll wrap things up with a spotlight shining a big nostalgic beam on the glory days of the PlayStation 2, the console that basically raised us all. All right, first up, welcome to Hobby Hangout, where I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Let's start with a progress check. Drop a comment. What did you manage to get done this week? Did you smash your hobby goals, or did life just get in the way? Either way, it's fine. Sometimes not painting is exactly what you need to happen. My goal was to finish these bases for my Inceptors. They are the bases for my Space Marines, and they're all on this apocalyptic Fallout wasteland style base. So while the bases aren't hard, they take ages. There's lots of bits, lots of drying time. So I just kept my goal simple: get them built. Each base has this custom resin flying stand because those GW clear ones look awful, snap way too easy. So I had a little bit of resin cleanup, and then I ran out of crackle paint. So I had to make an emergency trip to the local gaming store, but they are done. And honestly, I think they look mint. I can't wait to see these alongside my other flying suppressors. So follow for more weekly progress updates. But this isn't just me showing off. It's about sharing goals, encouraging each other, and sometimes just admitting that life hit harder than the hobby could handle. And speaking of hobby goals, let's look ahead and talk about what we're working on next week, because sometimes planning what we're going to complete is half the fun, and then the other half is inevitably spilling a pot of Nuln Oil all over the desk. Be honest, are you the kind of hobbyist who actually dry fits, or do you just gamble and hope for the best? My hobby goal next week is to get these bases painted, and honestly, they take ages. Lots of steps, lots of washes, and I don't like using a hairdryer on washes because it just blows the paint into all the wrong places. So it's slow going. What about you? What is your hobby goal? Is it building, painting, or even just playing? Drop a comment with what you're working on. Sometimes I forget the whole point of painting models is to actually use them in a game. But once the paint's done, I still need to pin the models onto the bases. I kind of messed this up with my suppressors, and you can't tell, but trust me, I know. This time I'm gonna actually dry fit, even though in the past I told myself that dry fitting was for losers and I like to gamble. Well, spoiler, that doesn't really work with Games Workshop. So yeah, tell me why I'm the idiot for never dry fitting. And if you want to see how these Inceptors turn out, give me a follow and come back next week for another Hobby Hangout. All right, while we're on the subject of saving time and looking sharp, let's talk about a little hobby hack that I've been using. And no, it doesn't involve any fancy kits or spending more money than you have. I want a quickie with you. All right, let's make things dirty. Games Workshop stuff isn't cheap. You've got the models, you've got the paints, you've got your brushes, but if you stick that masterpiece on a plain plastic base, it's still gonna look rubbish. And here's the truth, a great base can even make an average model look impressive. Trust me, just look at my Space Marines. Now, you could spend extra on basing bits, or you could just do it cheaper. Nobody would know. Like if you agree that hobby hacks should save you money, not drain your wallet. So do you need dirt and gravel? Well, go and find some sand. If you want rocks, well, a bag of cat litter costs a couple of quid and it's perfect. Do you need a cliff edge? Well, grab some slate or shale. Pipes and wires, just use some scrap wire. And then iron beams, chop up your sprues the models came on. Sure, there are cool products out there and they're fun to play with, but everybody's got random junk lying about at the bottom of their toolbox. Dig it out. Your bases will look incredible and unique, and you'll still have money left for your next army. Drop a comment with your weirdest basing material, because I guarantee somebody has tried stranger. Now, if bases and paint aren't enough to satisfy your weird competitive instincts, I've got a game that will. And yes, it's exactly as ridiculous as it sounds. Look me in the eyes and tell me that you wouldn't lick a dipplin if no one was watching. Yeah, I thought so. And it's time for the most unrequested game show on TikTok. Lick That Pokémon. The rules, they're simple. It's not about price. It's not even about rarity. It's not even about being the coolest. It's about which Pokemon you would most want to lick. Today's showdown is Stellar Crown versus the infamous Prismatic Evolutions. Like this video now if you would play this game with your mates. All right, Stellar Crown, you're up first. What have you got for me? Right. We want some lickability. Plant Pokemon are all right, but there is a chance that they're going to poison the hell out of us. Lechonk could taste a bit bacony. Focus. A Clink Clank. I mean, if it's clean, it could be all right. Right, and Prismatic Evolutions. Can you top that? Oh, an Aromatisse, that's... It might be like eating Parma violets. Oh, it's not liking the focus today, is it? Okay, shall we see what we have? I mean, Stellar Crown, Lechonk is probably, I think they play in muck, but pigs are meant to be pretty clean. Clink Clank as well, pretty industrial, might be like licking something at the dentist. Prismatic, you've got some cute Pokemon there, a Buneri, an Eevee. You know what? I think the runners-up go to this Lechonk and this Clink Clank because they're not the worst licks. But I think I'm going to crown the winner, this Aromatisse, because, yeah, it might be like licking soap, but at least we know it's going to be a relatively nice fragrance and not anything too disgusting. So drop a comment, would you have crowned the same winner? And what's one Pokemon that you would definitely lick without hesitation? And don't pretend you don't have an answer. Look, we'll be back with more Lick That Pokemon next week. But Prismatic Evolutions, you win for today. Right. From Pokemon to flexing imaginary muscles, it's time to get serious in the way that only dice and fantasy worlds can make you serious. Would you rather be the one with the biceps that can smash down a door, the genius who knows everything, or the charming rogue who can talk their way out of anything? Those aren't just my life choices. That is Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome to our beginners deep dive, where I strip the stress out of the rules and get you rolling dice fast. Here's how D&D works. Anytime you try something that could fail, you roll a dice. Walking into a tavern, there's no roll. Fine, the tavern is shut, so try to kick down that locked door. That is a roll. Double tap if you've ever gambled on a stupid dice roll that completely changed the story. Now, every character has 6 abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These define what you're good at. High strength, you're smashing doors. High charisma, you're convincing the guards that you definitely belong here. Low intelligence, well, you're hilarious. Each ability is also broken down into smaller skills. So intelligence, for example, splits into things like investigation, nature, arcana, religion. That way, 2 characters can both be smart, but in completely different ways. Maybe you know every plant and weather pattern, but nothing about magic. Or maybe you think you're clever, but fail every single roll. Drop a comment if you've ever played that fake smart character in D&D. And that's the magic of the D&D system. There is no perfect build, no best way to play. Every ability, every flaw, every failure helps tell the story. Follow for more D&D breakdowns next week with another deep dive. And speaking of storytelling, let's swing over to comics where the good, the bad, and the bizarre all live side by side. Can I just fanboy over Kevin Smith for a second? Is this man ever capable of doing anything wrong? Well, let's find out in Archie Meets Jay and Silent Bob. The story follows Archie getting a summer job at Quick Stop, and it picks up after Clerks 3, which I was not expecting, and I've only watched Clerks 3 once because emotionally, I just can't. And it hits hard thinking about that. Again, I don't know much about Archie comics. I assume they're all based in a shared universe, but that didn't matter. This comic still works if you only know Kevin Smith's world. Even without a deep knowledge of Archie, there are some references that I caught, like Randall warning the now devil-worshipping Elias to not drag him into his chilling adventures. Yeah, he's a little forced as a joke, but it's a nice little nod tying the worlds together. And the comic is packed with Easter eggs from the Clerks universe. Like this video if you love those fan-focused details. Also, Randall Graves is forever my favorite. He embodies all of our intrusive thoughts, and Kevin writes him brilliantly. Some of his lines are the best lines in film history, and I will die on this hill. Randall Graves is perfectly written. This comic is also extremely crude and foul-mouthed, nothing like the clean, all-ages Archie I imagined, but that's Smith's style, and it works. The story is split into 2 halves, starting with Quick Stop and then moving into Riverdale, which I know the Kevin Smith side of things slightly more, but fans of both would love the mashup entirely. If you love Kevin Smith, you'll enjoy this. If you think he is massively overrated, I would just skip it. I laughed out loud multiple times, which honestly feels rare these days. Randall's lines alone make this my hit of the week. Right. From foul-mouthed quips to superhero haters. Let's see if Black Hammer's Spiral City wraps things up in style. Can Jeff Lemire actually pull everything together in the final issue of Black Hammer Spiral City? He's got a lot to do, so let's see if he manages it. Black Hammer Spiral City is the latest arc in the ongoing superhero saga. It follows heroes who are no longer welcome in the world they once protected. Supervillains roam free, the mayor's spreading anti-superhuman sentiment, and issue 7 wraps up this entire arc. Now, I'll be honest, this arc has been one of the weakest in Black Hammer's history. After 6 gloomy, doom-laden issues, issue 7 had a lot to do to win me back. The first couple of pages frustrated me. It's more political storylines, dark colours, and a tone that just weighted on me. But by page 4, things started to come together a bit. Malcolm Gold, Hell's Bell, and Lucy Webber finally interact, and the plot threads start converging. By the end, most conflicts do resolve. Characters face consequences, grudgingly accept help, and disliked characters get their comeuppance. It's satisfying, even if not jaw-dropping. Comment with a series that you think has fallen off the hardest. There are nods in this to past Black Hammer issues, cameos and Easter eggs, which are nice visually but feel a little shoehorned. They don't really move the plot forward. And then the colour palette, even when things start to feel more lifted and hope reappears, everything is still dark and muted, making it hard to feel lifted by the narrative. Overall, the issue provides closure. The heroes succeed, the villains pay, loose threads tie up, but this arc fell short of my expectations. It lacked the energy and excitement that originally drew me in. If you're a fan, finish it for completion, but personally, this is my miss of the week. And if you're thinking of getting into your comics, but it all feels a little bit too intimidating, do not worry. I've got a quick tip that will make stepping into a comic shop way less scary. I will never forget what the Canadian lady at Travelling Man in Manchester said, because she gave me the best single piece of comic advice I have ever heard. And now I'm going to pass it on to you. If you're walking new into a comic shops can feel brutal. The shelves are stacked with hundreds of titles, and there's 17 different covers for the same comic. Marvel fans are hating on indie fans are hating on Marvel. It's pretty chaotic. Here's the first thing she said to me. You don't need a reason to pick up a comic. Maybe the cover art grabs you. Maybe the title sounds cool. Or maybe it's tied to a show you already love. Like if you agree that more people should just pick comics because they get a feeling. And the second thing she said, you won't get it right every time. You'll buy duds and you'll think some things are great until you find something better. But that's how you refine your taste. You'll always have a soft spot for those early comics. For me, I'm looking at you, the wicked and the divine. So let me know in the comments, what was the first comic that really hooked you? For me, I think it might have been Sex Criminals. Comic shops might seem intimidating, but the staff are some of the friendliest and most passionate people you will ever meet. Tell them what you're into. Sci-fi, horror, dystopias, and they'll light up with recommendations. Follow for more comic advice, because next week I'm finally answering the age-old mystery. What does TP stand for if it's not toilet paper? Right. Speaking of reading, it's time to flip some more pages and see what Luffy and the crew are up to. Is One Piece finally back to its best with Volume 4? Let's talk about it in this week's book club. This volume focuses on the crew, Kaya's village, and the Black Cat pirates. And I think I'm finally getting into the One Piece mindset. Like, what's up with this sheep-headed butler? Is that his hair? Is it a hat? Is he part sheep? Does it even matter? Probably not. Oda's designs don't need explaining, and that's half the fun. And what really impressed me was the detail. So the crew all fight for the same goal, but it's for completely different reasons. Luffy is protecting the village full of food, Usopp is proving himself, and Nami is defending her treasure. Even the plaster on Kuro's face pays off later. Oda thinks about every action and mannerism of every character. The jokes land too. Loads of wordplay and cat puns. Cat burglar, catastrophe, catapult. They're funny in English, but I was a little bit gutted to learn that some of these were creative translations. Drop a comment if you prefer faithful translations or funnier ones. Now, it's not perfect. The panel layouts sometimes feel janky. The words cut off and panels squashed in, and there's odd narrative moments as well, like Nami clearly throwing caltrops forward, but later on in the story they apparently have landed behind her, which feels odd when everything else is so incredibly tight. Still, Volume 4 is a huge step up from Volume 3. It's faster, it's funnier, it's more brutal, and once I stopped expecting every chapter to end on a comic book style cliffhanger and read it more like a novel, it clicked. I'm buzzing to see if Volume 5 keeps up that momentum, so follow if you're on this One Piece journey too, because we are nowhere near done. And finally, for today's nostalgia fix, we are heading back under the spotlight, back to the PS2 era, and a game that I've been meaning to try for 22 years. What is one game that you have always wanted to play but never did? And now you're too scared in case it won't live up to the hype. I'll go first. I'm flipping through the August 2022 edition of the official PlayStation 2 magazine once again, and page 46 to be precise, and found an article called 13 and Counting. It's about 13, a first-person shooter by Ubisoft, stylized in Roman numerals, and honestly, I can't help but thinking that this must have influenced Borderlands. It was called one of the most visually original titles on the PS2, and I reckon that still holds true. It was first shown at E3 in 2002 and billed itself as the first comic-rendered FPS. The story, well, you wash up on a beach with amnesia. The only clue is a 13 tattooed on your chest, and you've got military skills. One plotline uncovers a conspiracy against the government, and the other uncovers who you really are. And here's a fun fact, the game is based on a Belgian graphic novel, not the other way around. And I think that's why it looks so unique. And yet there was online play for 32 players on the PS2, which is kind of wild considering that almost nobody had a PS2 modem. Comment if you remember anybody that had one. Originally, this was scheduled for release in early 2003, but it actually got released in November 2003. The PS2 version got a Metascore of 73. The 2003 remake got 41. So if you are hunting it down, the original PS2 copy is the one to play. I'll be keeping an eye out for a copy at CEX. Finally, checking this off my list of games I've never played. Comment with the PS2 game you've always wanted to try. And that's a wrap on the very first episode of It's Saturday Morning. A new episode drops every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. So grab a bowl of cereal, park yourself cross-legged in front of the screen and make it your weekend ritual. All the best bits will be over on TikTok. And follow so you don't miss next week's episode because we'll be licking more Pokemon, diving deeper into Dungeons and Dragons, running through the best and the worst comics of the week, sneaking in another PS2 throwback, and plenty more. I'm Steve, and your weekend just got way more fun. It's Saturday morning, baby.